From allegations of Jake Paul being a cokehead to the recent New Year's Eve slapgate in Cabo, Dana White seems more like a cartel leader than the president of a company worth $10 billion. These are Dana White's most insane moments. And first, did you know that Jake Paul's accusations of White's cocaine use?
You publicly stated that I use cocaine. I do not.
Wasn't the first time the illegal party drug was involved in an insane Dana White controversy. In fact, the straw was in the other nostril. Dana White and Oscar De La Hoya used to be friends. That friendship ended back in 2017 when De La Hoya, in a backstabbing move, attempted to start his own MMA organization that would rival that of the UFC.
So I want to start Golden Boy MMA and So you're just talking some business?
El Jefe White made his opinion well known to the public, blowing up at the Golden Boy, calling the Hall of Fame boxer an idiot and a liar. But that's just the appetizer for this insanity. Back in 2021, De La Hoya made headlines by announcing he would be coming out of retirement to box MMA legend Vitor Belfort. When asked for his opinion about Oscar's comeback, the always insane White responded with, "Cocaine isn't cheap. It's expensive. Gotta make money."
Cocaine isn't cheap. It's expensive. Gotta make money.
Thanks, Dana.
Yep.
Know something that we don't, Dana? Sounds like you've partied with Oscar before. But hey, this ain't the first time Dana's been in a beef with his legendary brawlers. Do you know which UFC legend actually had a sparring match with White written into his UFC contract? Huntington Beach bad boy, Tito Ortiz. One of MMA's legendary badasses who always felt like White would do anything to take advantage of his organization's fighters. In response, Dana White unloaded the smack talk on Tito. Very presidential. Things came to a head in 2007 when Bad Boy Ortiz was asked to coach on UFC's Ultimate Fighter. Ortiz, with utter disgust towards White, probably laughed and said, "Only if I get to fight Dana White." To which, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, Dana White said, "Absolutely, Tito. Let's box." Let me get this straight. A 37-year-old who's never fought in a professional fight agreed to box one of the scariest fighters of all time. If that's not insane, I don't know what is. Ultimately, the fight never happened, but only after Tito, not Wacko White, decided to be the bigger man and say that it was a lose-lose idea. Speaking of lose-lose ideas, something Dana White has quite a bit of. Did you ever hear of a scandal involving the UFC and domestic terrorists? Back in 2012, a controversial bill in Congress aimed at putting an end to online piracy made headlines, and White, doing his Dana White thing, felt like he needed to let people know he was in favor of the bill. Well, the internet hacker group, codenamed Anonymous, poked the bear a bit and hacked the UFC website. White backed down. Just kidding, this is legendary loony Dana White. Of course he doubled down by daring the infamous hackers to do it again and see what happens. White wasn't done vomiting from his mouth. Continuing his rage-fueled idiotic rant, White called the hackers terrorists.
Life with the way that
They may have revived it.
They might have revived it. Yeah, when you start acting like a terrorist, first of all, one thing is...
Can you guess what happened next? The group hacked the UFC site again. What a shocker. And boy, these internet wizards were pissed. Not only did they hack the site, they leaked sensitive information about Dana specifically, like his social security number, the coordinates to his house, and his 2 personal cell phone numbers. You'd think that if you've already been hacked once, you might be hacked again. But, in the insane mind of Dana White, there's nothing more important than trash talk. Even when the people you're trash talking to don't even have a name. Do you think that deranged Dana ever gets tired of wiping all that egg off his face? Do you know what else Dana White wipes off his face? A little of the devil's dandruff. Cocaine. This next insane moment comes straight from the mouth of one of the biggest stars of today, Jake Paul. During a 2021 interview with Graham Bensinger, after repeatedly taking jabs at White's ability to properly manage his fighters, culminated the interview by explaining his most recent Halloween costume. Did Paul dress up as Darth Vader? Nope. Donald Trump? Nope. Paul detests White so much for how he treats his fighters that he went dressed up as Wacky White himself. What really brought the spooky outfit together was either the giant bag of white powder or the smeared powder all over White's face. Now, if we know anything at all by now about White, we know that he acted like the mature 50-something-year-old president of a major sports organization would. That's a big nope. The following day, in a very odd selfie video, looking a little worse for wear, maybe Paul is onto something, delusional Dana lashed back, accusing Paul of doing steroids, and even going as far as,
"And I believe that you use steroids. So I want to randomly steroid test you."
sending cease and desist letters to Paul's team for trying to promote Paul's fight against Anderson Silva, getting the lawyers involved. Just because you can't handle a little trash talk from a competitor in the fight game, seems like White may be truly losing it. Speaking of losing his cool, did you hear about the recent and horrible controversy from White over New Year's Eve? Something we all hate to see, and quite possibly the icing on the cake when it comes to the question if Dana White is truly insane or not. Leaked cell phone footage from a club in Cabo San Lucas shows Dana White and his wife partying the night away. But then, things start to get crazy. When Mrs. White turns her back on her husband and tries to walk away, White is seen grabbing his wife's wrist and pulling her back towards him. Mrs. White, in response to being forcefully pulled back, takes a rather meaningless swipe at Dana White. Apparently, the same hot-headed man we see in public is the same person he is at home. No surprise there. Dana's response to his wife's attempt to get away by open-hand slapping her not once, but twice, committing a heinous act of domestic violence right in front of friends and patrons. White has since apologized and mentioned that there was a lot of alcohol involved. That may be true, but alcohol or not, to strike your wife with so many people around, it makes you wonder what really happens in private. It gets crazier, folks. Actually, weirder. This all happened just months after Dana and the UFC launched the highly controversial Power Slap League. Yes, we said slap. An actual televised, quote, sporting event where two people stand across from each other and, you guessed it, slap each other in the face as hard as they can. We would pay money, after watching that video from Mexico, of that nut job hitting his wife, to see Dana White line up across from the Power Slap heavyweight champion. Maybe instead of the proverbial slap on the wrist he'll most likely receive for assaulting his wife, a gigantic whop from some grizzly badass will knock something that's been loose in his brain for a while back in place. So, from allegations of cocaine use to Slapgate in Mexico, those were Dana White's most insane moments.